This set of slides is a case study of Susan Fairfax and shows how an investment policy statement can be done. So the overview is that Susan Fairfax is president of Reston Industries, a US-based company whose sales are entirely domestic and whose shares are listed on the New York Stock Exchange. Following additional facts reflect her current situation. Fairfax is single and 58 years old. She has no immediate family, no debts, and does not own a residence. She is in excellent health and covered by Reston paid health insurance that continues after her expected retirement at age 65. Her base salary of $500,000 a year, inflation protected, is sufficient to support her present lifestyle but can no longer generate any excess savings. She has $2 million of savings from prior years held in the form of short-term securities. Reston rewards key employees through generous stock bonus incentive plans, but the company provides no pension plan and pays no dividend. Fairfax's incentive plan participation has resulted in her ownership of Reston stock worth $10 million at the current market value. The stock was received tax-free but is subject to tax at a 35% rate on the entire proceeds if sold. She expects to hold the Reston stock at least until her retirement. The present level of spending and current annual inflation rate of 4% are expected to continue after her retirement. Fairfax is taxed at 35% on all salary, investment income, and realized capital gains. Her composite tax rate is assumed to continue at this level indefinitely. So Fairfax's orientation is patient, careful, and conservative in all things. She has stated that an annual after-tax real total return of 3% would be completely acceptable to her if it were achieved in a context whereby an investment portfolio created from her accumulated savings was unlikely to decline by more than 10% in nominal terms in any given 12-month period. So working with Fairfax, HH Advisors created the following draft investment policy statement. So this is the overview part of the investment policy statement. Ms. Fairfax is 58 years old and has 7 years until her planned retirement. She has a fairly lavish lifestyle but few financial worries. Her salary pays all her current expenses and she has accumulated $2 million in cash equivalents from savings, i.e. the savings portfolio. Her health is excellent and her employer-paid health insurance coverage will continue after retirement. She has sought professional advice to begin planning for her investment future, a future that is complicated by ownership of a $10 million block of company stock. The stock is listed on the New York Stock Exchange, pays no dividends, and has zero cost basis for tax purposes. All salary, investment income, except interest on municipal bonds, and realized capital gains are taxed to Ms. Fairfax at a 35% rate. This tax rate and a 4% annual inflation rate are expected to continue into the future. Ms. Fairfax would accept a 3% real after-tax return from the investment portfolio and to be formed from her savings portfolio. If that return could be obtained with only modest downside risk, i.e. less than a 10% annual decline, she describes herself as being conservative in all things. I'd like you to note there the assumptions that HH Advisors have made going forward. So 4% annual inflation rate continuing and the tax rate continuing into the future. The objectives. So here is where they set the return requirement objectives. So Ms. Fairfax's need for portfolio income begins 7 years from now, when her salary stops on the day she retires. The interim return focus for her investment portfolio, the savings portfolio, should be on growing the portfolio's value in a way that provides protection against loss of purchasing power. Her 3% real after-tax return preference implies a gross total return requirement of at least 10.8%, assuming her investments are fully taxable, as is the case now, and assuming 4% inflation and a 35% tax rate. For Ms. Fairfax to maintain her current lifestyle, she must generate $500,000 times 1.04, which is the inflation rate, to the power of 7, 7 years until her retirement, which equals $658,000 in annual inflation-adjusted income when she retires. If the market value of Reston's stock does not change, and if she has been able to earn a 10.8% return on the investment portfolio, which is a 7% nominal after-tax return, she would receive the $2 million, the value of her current portfolio, times 1.07, 7% return, to the power of 7 years until retirement, which equals $3,211,500. And if she invested that, she could accumulate $13,211,500 by retirement age. To generate the $658,000 return on the $13,211,500, of approximately 5% is needed. If she sells her position in Reston Industries, leaving 1 minus 35%, times $10 million, which is the value of the holdings, plus the $3,211,500 that's left over after she sells $10 million, that leaves her with $9,711,500 to invest, a return of 6.8%, which is $658,000 divided by the $9.7 million. So she needs 6.8% return. This is the risk tolerance objectives. So they've collected information, done their surveys, and this is what they found. So Miss Fairfax has a below average willingness to take risk, as evidenced by her statement that in any given year she does not want to experience a decline of more than 10% in the value of the investment portfolio. This desire indicates that her portfolio should have below average risk exposure to minimize downside volatility. Her overall wealth position, however, suggests that an above average ability to take risk. Because of her preferences and the non-diversified nature of the portfolio, an average to below average risk tolerance objective is appropriate for the portfolio. Statements about risk of Miss Fairfax's portfolio are tied to assumptions about the volatility of Reston's stock, if it is retained, and when and at what price the stock will be sold, because it constitutes 83% of the total portfolio. And now they go into some constraints. So this is the time horizon. Miss Fairfax has a multi-stage time horizon. The first stage is the intermediate term period, which is 7 years until her retirement. The second stage is relatively long term, representing Miss Fairfax's life expectancy of perhaps 30 years or more. During the first stage, Miss Fairfax should arrange her financial affairs in preparation for the balance of the second stage, a retirement period of indefinite length. Of the two horizons, the second horizon is the dominant one because it is during this period that her assets must fulfill their primary function of funding her expenses in an annuity sense in retirement. Liquidity restraint is Miss Fairfax's immediate liquidity requirement is minimal. She has $500 worth of salary available annually, healthcare costs are not a problem, and she has no planned needs for cash from the portfolio. Taxes. Miss Fairfax's taxable income is 35%. Careful tax planning and coordination of tax policy with investment planning is required. All else equal, investment strategies should seek to maximize after-tax income and defer the realization of capital gains. Sale on the Reston stock would have sizable tax consequences because of the zero cost basis. Special planning will be needed for this sale. Miss Fairfax may want to consider some form of charitable giving, either during her lifetime or at death. She has no immediate family and no other potential gift or bequest recipients are known. Law and regulations. Miss Fairfax should be aware of and abide by all laws and regulations relating to her insider status at Reston and her hold of Reston stock. Although no trust instrument is in place, if Miss Fairfax's future investing is handled by an investment advisor, the responsibilities associated with the prudent person rule will come into play, including the responsibility for investing in a diversified portfolio. Unique circumstances. The value of the rest in stock dominates Miss Fairfax's portfolio value. A well-defined exit strategy must be developed for the stock. If the stock's value increases or at least does not decline from being liquidated, Miss Fairfax's lifestyle can be sustained after retirement. If not, a dramatic downscaling of Miss Fairfax's lifestyle or generation of alternative sources of income would be required. Miss Fairfax will need to seek legal estate planning assistance, especially if she wishes to establish a gifting program. And the synopsis is the overview. So the policy governing investments in Miss Fairfax's savings portfolio shall emphasize realizing 3% real after-tax return from a mix of high-quality assets representing, in aggregate, no more than average and preferably below average risk. Ongoing attention shall be given to Miss Fairfax's tax planning and legal needs, her progress towards retirement and the value of her rest in stock. The rest in stock holding is a unique circumstance of decisive significance. Corporate developments should be monitored closely, and protection against the effects of a worst-case scenario should be implemented as soon as possible. So this case study should help you prepare for your assignment. It is part of the investment policy statement, and next we're going to look at how to determine the asset allocation part of this plan.